Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Mueller, for being here. For 2 years leading up to the release of the Mueller report, and in the 3 months since, Americans were first told what to expect and then what to believe. Collusion, we were told, was in plain sight, even if the special counsel's team didn't find it. When Mr. Mueller produced his report and Attorney General Barr provided it to every American, we read no American conspired with Russia to interfere in our elections, but learned the depths of Russia's malice toward America. We are here to ask serious questions about Mr. Mueller's work, and we will do that. After an extended, unhampered investigation, today marks an end to Mr. Mueller's involvement in an investigation that closed in April. The burden of proof for accusations that remain unproven is extremely high, and especially in light of the special counsel's thoroughness. We are told this investigation began as an inquiry into whether Russia meddled in our 2016 election. Mr. Mueller, you concluded they did. Russians accessed Democrat servers and disseminated sensitive information by tricking campaign insiders into revealing protected information. The investigation also reviewed whether Donald Trump, the president, sought Russian assistance as a candidate to win the presidency. Mr. Mueller concluded he did not. His family or advisors did not. In fact, the report concludes no one in the president's campaign colluded, collaborated, or conspired with the Russians. The president watched the public narrative surrounding this investigation, assume his guilt while he knew the extent of his innocence. Volume 2 of Mr. Mueller's report details the president's reaction to frustrating investigation where his innocence was established early on. The president's attitude toward the investigation was understandably negative, yet the president did not use his authority to close the investigation. He asked his lawyer if Mr. Mueller had conflicts that disqualified Mr. Mueller from the job, but he did not shut down the investigation. The president knew he was innocent. Those are the facts of the Mueller report. Russia meddled in the 2016 election, the president did not conspire with the Russian, and nothing we hear today will change those facts. But one element of this story remains, the beginnings of the FBI investigation into the president. I look forward to Mr. Mueller's testimony about what he found during his review of the origins of the investigation. In addition, the Inspector General continues to review how baseless gossip can be used to launch an FBI investigation against a private citizen and eventually a president. Those results will be released, and we will need to learn from them to ensure government intelligence and law enforcement powers are never again used and turned on a private citizen or a potential or political candidate as a result of the political leanings of a handful of FBI agents. The origins and conclusions of the Mueller investigation are the same things, what it means to be American. Every American has a voice in our democracy, so it must protect the sanctity of their voice by combating election interference. Every American enjoys the presumption of innocence and guarantee of due process. If we carry anything away today, it must be that we increase our vigilance against foreign election interference while we ensure our government officials don't weaponize their power against the constitutional rights guaranteed to every U.S. citizen. Finally, we must agree that the opportunity cost here is too high. The months we have spent investigating from this dais failed to end the border crisis or contribute to the growing job market. Instead, we have gotten stuck, and it's paralyzed this committee and this House. And as a side note, every week I leave my family and kids, the most important things to me, to come to this place because I believe this place is a place where we can actually do things and help people. 6.5 years ago, I came here to work on behalf of the people of the 9th District in this country. And we accomplished a lot in those first 6 years on a bipartisan basis with many of my friends across the aisle sitting on this dais with me today. However, this year, because the majority's dislike of this president and the endless hearing into a closed investigation have caused us to accomplish nothing except talk about the problems of our country while our border is on fire and in crisis and everything else is stopped. This hearing is long overdue. We have had truth for months. No American conspired to throw our election. What we need today is to let that truth bring us confidence and I hope, Mr. Chairman, closure. With that, I yield back.
Oh boy. Today is the big day. The Robert Mueller testimony on Capitol Hill. Oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. Where should I even begin? Honestly, where in the world should I even begin? Well, might as well go ahead and start with the obvious. Russia! Because that's all we heard for 2 years. Russia, 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 Russia. It was like clockwork. You couldn't turn on a news network for God knows how long without hearing Russia did this, Russia did that, Russia tried to take our elections over this and that. And what kills me is, before I even dig into this whole Mueller thing, if they really want to secure elections that bad, get away from electronic voting booths. Because they have shown that small 11-year-old children have been able to hack through the type of software that is used at the voting booths. If you really want to secure your elections, there is one thing that experts have agreed on would definitely secure it. In a world filled with cyber hackers, it doesn't need to be anything electronic. You want to know what it is, people? Paper ballots. Paper ballots. It's old school, but it's effective, and it's much better than electronic voting booths. Okay? Now, Bob Mueller. Whew. You know, when I took civics class coming up in middle school and high school, I actually took a couple of different, I think one was called street law or something like that, and the other was called civics or whatever. But there was one thing that I always heard about the way our judicial system was supposed to work in this country, and that is you are innocent until proven guilty. Proven guilty. Not the other way around. Now, some people may argue, well, we're not exactly following that whole ideology. That doesn't matter. That's the standard. That's the standard. You're innocent until you are proven guilty. Okay? So, for all this time we heard Trump colluded with the Russians. Trump did this with the Russians. Trump did that with the Russians. Yet what we found out was the only people who actually paid foreign operatives to dig up dirt on the campaign. And yes, that one woman did have a meeting at Trump Tower, according to the Mueller report, offering to give up dirt to the Trump campaign about Hillary. It was coming from the Russians, but nothing ever actually happened. But Hillary Clinton did pay to get that dossier. Okay? Hillary Clinton paid Fusion GPS, the Clinton campaign. Okay? So when you go back and you examine all that, the connections to the Russians are without a doubt more connected to Hillary Clinton. Who gave Russia the restart button as the Secretary of State? Hillary Clinton. Who, even though some people tried to debunk this, but even left-wing people like Jimmy Dore have admitted this one. Jimmy Dore even had, saw through the BS on this and admitted to this. Okay? One reason I like Jimmy Dore, he tells it like he sees it. I don't always have to agree with the guy, but he tells it like he sees it. And in a lot of ways, he's right. He's right. There's certain issues I disagree with him on, but he had this one down pat. And that was, she was involved in the Uranium One deal. Okay? And you can't tell me that it is a coincidence that the Clinton Foundation taking in all this money from the Russians, and then meanwhile, while she's Secretary of State, we just sign off a ton of uranium to Russia. Really? And then they've since dug into just what kind of influence some of these Russian companies had on social media. And the numbers were so pitiful and small. It was ridiculous. But we heard for all this time, and people, the Democrats in Congress, the collusion is in plain sight. Then why did they just vote down to open impeachment proceedings for the third time on President Trump? Al Green from Texas, a Democrat congressman, has introduced on 3 different occasions articles of impeachment on President Trump. And they've never gone anywhere. Yet you've got the Democrats sitting on Capitol Hill right now with President Trump on this whole Mueller report deal, playing politics to the fullest. You know, they're doing like the impression of an impeachment, I guess, just to keep some of their base happy but they're not trying to impeach him. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. They're wasting our time. They're wasting our time up there on Capitol Hill. Okay? But this, and then go just dig through this Mueller investigation. Just shot, absolute full of corruption. But there's one thing that most certainly wasn't done here, and that is the innocent till proven guilty. That was not given to the President of the United States on this investigation. Flat out. Flat out. Okay? And just listening to the bits of Mueller testimony that I've got here, I honestly wonder, did he do a single thing with this investigation? Because it sounds to me like all the angry Democrats Trump's tweeted about. It sounds like they ran the whole thing. They're asking him questions from his own report, and he's sitting there like a deer in headlights, has no clue what they're asking. He's like, sorry, what page did you say it was on? I mean, from what I've seen of this man, he looked like a bumbling fool today on Capitol Hill. And we're going to have a few clips of that. And there's one in particular from Congressman Jim Jordan that I just found, ever so enjoyable. We'll get to that one in a moment. But first, we opened with the clip of Doug Collins' opening statement, Congressman Doug Collins from Georgia. I now want to play the questioning of Bob Mueller by Doug Collins. Let's take a look.
Thank you, sir.
In your press conference, you stated any testimony from your office would not go beyond our report. We chose these words carefully. The work speaks for itself. I would not provide information beyond that which is already public in any appearance before Congress. Do you stand by that statement?
Yes.
Since closing the special counsel's office in May of 2019, have you conducted any additional interviews or obtained any new information in your role as special counsel?
In the wake of the report,
Since the closing of the office in May of 2019.
and the question was,
Have you conducted any new interviews and any new witnesses,
No.
anything? And you can confirm you're no longer special counsel, correct?
I am no longer special counsel.
At any time with the investigation, was your investigation curtailed or stopped or hindered?
No.
Were you or your team provided any questions by members of Congress of the majority ahead of your hearing today?
No.
Your report states that your investigative team included 19 lawyers and approximately 40 FBI agents and analysts and accountants. Are those numbers accurate?
Could you repeat that, please?
40 FBI agents, 19 lawyers, intelligence analysts, and forensic accountants. Are those numbers accurate? This was included in your report.
Generally, yes.
Is it also true that you issued over 2,800 subpoenas, executed nearly 500 search warrants, obtained more than 230 orders for communication records, and 50 pen registers?
That went a little fast for me.
Okay. In your report, I'll make this very simple. You did a lot of work, correct?
Yes, that I agree
A
to.
lot of subpoenas, a lot of pen
A lot of
registers.
subpoenas. Yes.
Okay, we'll walk this really slow if we
A
need
lot
to.
of search warrants.
All right, a lot of search warrants, a lot of things. So you're very thorough.
The what?
In your opinion, very thorough. You listed this
Yes.
out in your
Yes.
report, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Is it true the evidence gathered during your investigation, given the questions that you have just answered, is it true the evidence gathered during your investigation did not establish that the president was involved in the underlying crime related to Russian election interference as stated in Volume 1, page 7?
We found insufficient evidence of the president's culpability.
So that would be a yes.
Without, pardon?
That would be a yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Isn't it true the evidence did not establish that the president or those close to him were involved in the charged Russian computer hacking or active measure conspiracies, or that the president otherwise had unlawful relationships with any Russian official? Volume 2, page 76, correct?
I leave the answer to our report.
So as a yes. Is that any true your investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with Russian government in the election interference activity? Volume 1, page 2, Volume 1, page 173.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Although your report states collusion is not so specific offense, and you've said that this morning, or a term of art in federal criminal law, conspiracy is. In the colloquial context, are collusion and conspiracy essentially synonymous terms?
You're going to have to repeat that for me.
Collusion is not a specific offense or a term of art in the federal criminal law. Conspiracy is.
Yes.
In the colloquial context, known public context, collusion and conspiracy are essentially synonymous terms, correct?
No.
If no, on page 180 of volume 1 of your report, you wrote, as defined in legal dictionaries, collusion is largely synonymous with conspiracy, as that crime is set forth in the General Federal Conspiracy Statute 18 U.S.C. 371. You said at your May 29th press conference and here today, you choose your words carefully. Are you sitting here today testifying something different than what your report states?
Well, what I'm asking is if you can give me the citation, I can look at the citation and evaluate whether it is accurate.
Okay, let me just be clarified. You stated that you would stay within the report. I just stated your report back to you. And you said that collusion and conspiracy were not synonymous terms. That was your answer, was no.
That's correct.
In that, page 180 of volume 1 of your report, it says, as defined in legal dictionaries, collusion is largely synonymous with conspiracy, as that crime is set forth in General Conspiracy Statute 18 U.S.C. 371. Now, you said you chose your words carefully. Are you contradicting your report right now?
Not when I read it.
So you would change your answer to yes then?
No. If you look at the language.
I'm reading your report, sir. It's a yes or no answer.
Page 180.
Page 180, volume 1. Okay. This was from your report.
Correct. And I leave it with the report.
So the report says, yes, they are synonymous.
Yes.
Hopefully, for finally, out of your own report, we can put to bed the collusion and conspiracy. One last question as we're going through. Did you ever look into other countries investigated in the Russian interference into our election? Were other countries investigated or found knowledge that they had interference in our election?
I'm not going to discuss other matters.
That I yield back.
Ooh. Ooh. Oh, that was getting a little painful there right towards the end. You had to kind of watch that clip all the way through, and then it picked up steam right there at the end. And then that's when you start, if you're anything like me, to look at that and say to yourself, did this man investigate anything himself? Or did he just let the angry Democrats go do it for him? He said on May 29th, he did not plan to testify. He didn't want to testify. I'm paraphrasing him more or less. He wanted his report to speak for itself, and that the words were chosen very carefully. Very carefully. Emphasis on that. His words were chosen very carefully. And he said that the terms collusion was synonymous. Okay? Doug got him. Doug got him. He read his report to him. And then when he brought it up, he said, "Oh, no. That's not what I said." And then Doug said, "Oh, but wait a minute. I'm reading this straight from your report. You chose your words very carefully." "Oh, well, what page was that on? Let me go read the report real quick." So you have to go read what someone else probably had typed up for you and prepared for you. That way you can figure out your story. Because, see, two things Trump said early in his campaign, something Jesse Ventura once said too. When they did rallies and they did campaign speeches, they didn't have, now Trump since has gotten used to using the, whatever they're called. It escapes me at the moment, but the little screens that show your notes to you to tell you what the teleprompter. Trump uses teleprompter now, but when he first started campaigning, he didn't. He didn't use teleprompter. And Jesse Ventura said the same thing. He didn't use a teleprompter. You know why? Because if you're telling the truth, you don't have to think about what you're saying. You're just telling the truth. You're just saying it like it is. Call it simple, call it old-fashioned. Hey, the truth is the truth. And if you're always telling the truth, you don't have to write yourself notes so you don't get stumped on the spot. If you don't know, you say you don't know. If you know, you say what you know. And then, hey, leave it at that. Leave it at that. Just always tell the truth. Clear evidence right there. He stumped him. He just stumped him. He had to get the citation from the report so he could go back and read it for himself and, oh, yeah, that's right, that's what we came up with. Oh, Lord. Now, this, this whole investigation, let's remember, this Mueller investigation, by the time you add all the pay and the benefits and the research, $4.6 million is a study I read. $4.6 million is what this investigation roughly cost. I mean, and this is what we've come up with. This is what we've come up with. An old bumbling idiot on Capitol Hill who doesn't know what's in his own report that he chose the words of carefully. And a good chunk of his team, at least two in particular, two lovely, loving affair people, Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, had clear motive and bias against President Trump. And let's look at one other clip before we move forward. Let's take the words of Senator Chuck Schumer from New York, or as the man I like to watch on YouTube, Jimmy Dore, calls him, Chucky the Shoe. Let's see what he says when you try to tassel with the intelligence community.
This was his tweet just a little while ago tonight. You see the scare quotes there. The intelligence briefing on so-called Russian hacking was delayed until Friday. Perhaps more time needed to build a case. Very strange. We're actually told, intelligence sources tell NBC News, since this tweet has been posted, that actually this intelligence briefing for the president-elect was always planned for Friday. It hasn't been delayed. But he's taking these shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I am told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them. And we need the intelligence community. We don't know what's going on. Look at the Russian hacking. Without the intelligence community, we wouldn't have discovered it.
Do you think he has an agenda to try to dismantle parts of the intelligence community? I mean, this form of taunting, hostility.
Whether you're a super liberal Democrat or a very conservative Republican, you should be against dismantling the intelligence community.
Straight out of his own mouth. 6 ways from Sunday of getting back at you. And when he says, or when Rachel Maddow asked him, rather, what do you think they would do? Oh, I don't know, but what I've been told. Oh, please, Chuck. Come on, Chuck. Come on, Chuck. You know what they would do. You know what they would do. Maybe, I don't know, drag an investigation on, slow down your presidency, keep a scandal going, and then get right to the end and can't prove anything, but rather than just, again, this is where the innocent till proven guilty thing didn't get applied here. Get right to the end of the whole scenario and then say, well, we can't prove he's guilty. We're talking about obstruction now, because they definitely couldn't prove anything with Russia collusion. And this is what the whole testimony is supposed to be about today, is the obstruction. Okay? But get all the way to the end and then say, oh, well, we couldn't find anything on the Russian collusion. Now, as far as the obstruction is concerned, well, we can't say for sure that he's guilty. But if he was innocent, we would say he was innocent. And no, there wasn't something in my eye. I'm exaggerating what Mueller basically did. He basically handed the Democrats this on a silver platter to keep this whole thing just stirred up and going, man. And it is so ridiculous at this point. And I'm going to get into conspiracy theory land here for a moment. But somebody else said, if you tussle with the intelligence community a little too much, you might get a ride through Dallas. you go back and study President Kennedy, one of his 1964 campaign promises was that he was going to bust the CIA into 1,000 pieces. Okay, President Kennedy wasn't within the good graces of the intelligence community either. Now, do I have any evidence that's what happened? No, but you know that the whole Kennedy assassination has been shrouded in a lot of mystery for many, many years. And do I think it was Lee Harvey Oswald? No, I don't. Just because there's so much evidence that points the other direction. Okay? A bullet doing something no bullet's ever done in history. A man in the military only classified as a marksman, the lowest level you could get, pulled off a shot with a POS piece of crap rifle. 3 shots in X amount of seconds, and accurate shots on top of that on a moving target with a bolt action rifle known for the bolt jamming. And expert marksmen have since attempted that. Couldn't pull it off. Couldn't pull it off. And yet this guy only classified for the lowest level, and he pulled it off. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then we go to the movie theater after the Kennedy assassination. The police call that came in after J.D., he escaped the scene. He shot J.D. Tippit, and then there were bullet casings all out beside the cop J.D. Tippett's body. Yet he was shot with a revolver. Who in the heck is going to sit there and shoot the cop and then open up the revolver and then dump all the bullet casings out on the ground with a revolver gun? Who would do something that stupid? And then, while they're trying to investigate what's going on with the President of the United States, meanwhile, Dallas PD gets a call that some resident near a movie theater saw someone sneak in without buying a ticket, and yet half of the Dallas police force shows up to that movie theater. Now, what in the blue blazes, considering we're on a separate side of Dallas, would make the Dallas police think that was the man who shot Kennedy? That was the man who shot Kennedy. And then Oswald said 2 things going to the police station. And when he said one thing, he just said it twice, apparently, that he was a patsy. And before the man ever saw his day in court, he was shot. And the narrative for years on who killed him, Jack Ruby, was that they didn't know each other. And then since some of the more of the documents have come out since then, turns out, yeah, they actually did. So the government lied about that for quite a long time, too. Okay? So, yeah, those are some interesting comments there, Chuck. The government's got 6 ways Sunday to get back at you. That's very interesting. You would make those comments, because I think that might be what's going on here. Obviously, assassinating the man would be just a little too obvious to a lot of people. So we're going to keep this whole thing going. We're going to, ruin your presidency, slow it down with this big Russia scandal and anything else we can get our hands on. And the news media is so desperate to just get any scandal. I don't care if it's Stormy Daniels, the Russia investigation, obstruction of justice, Karen McDougal, you name it. And matter of fact, before we get to Jim Jordan, let's just take a look at this media hysteria over Russia we've had in the last 2 years, shall we?
Breaking news.
Oh, my God. Oh, breaking news. ABC News' Brian Ross is reporting Michael Flynn promised full cooperation to the Mueller team and is prepared to testify that as a candidate, Donald Trump directed him to make contact with the Russians.
I'm confident now, even more so than I have been throughout the last year, that this nightmare presidency of Donald John Trump will end prematurely and end soon.
If we discover that Donald Trump or his advocates played a role in helping to devise strategy, if they're the ones who came up with Crooked Hillary,
Crooked Hillary!
I think that is something that would put the question squarely on the table whether or not he should be impeached.
It supposedly happened in 2013, the year Trump hosted the Miss Universe pageant in Moscow.
The bombshell burst Tuesday evening when CNN reported the president-elect and President Obama were briefed on the matter last week. The report included unsubstantiated claims that Russian intelligence compiled a dossier on Mr. Trump during visits to Moscow.
He dismissed outright the very idea that he would take part in the sordid acts described in the report.
He denied everything. He called it all fake news.
The 35-page dossier on the so-called Russian connection to Trump, with some very salacious allegations, including unsubstantiated claims about Trump in a Moscow hotel room, was not completed until just before the election, and then provided to journalists, the Clinton campaign, and the FBI.
It claims that Donald Trump once visited Russia, stayed in the Ritz-Carlton in Moscow, and then hired prostitutes to perform a golden shower, and that Russia might have the whole thing on tape.
There were surveillance cameras in this room because the building is wired, and that the FSB has this because they automatically have cameras in the room, and they caught this happening.
Donald Trump engaged in perverted acts with prostitutes.
Trump immediately denied the report.
I'd like to ask you about your big Russian pee-pee party.
No, I am not talking about the pee-pee, because it didn't happen.
From there, the president-elect lit into the news media again. He condemned BuzzFeed.
It's a failing pile of garbage. Writing it, I think they're going to suffer the consequences.
And he accused CNN of being fake news and brushed off persistent attempts by its correspondent to ask a question. Later, CNN's parent company, Time Warner, defended its reporting, and BuzzFeed said it published what it called a newsworthy document.
It claims Trump set out to defile the suite because President Obama and the first family had once stayed there, and Trump, quote, hated the Obamas.
Everything that I had written in the in the months prior to that dossier coming out was almost identical to what the CIA had written, because we're intelligence officers. This is what we do.
That corroboration, based on intercepted communications, has given U.S. intelligence and law enforcement, quote, greater confidence in the credibility of some aspects of the dossier.
The most salacious and unverified claims are that the Russian Secret Service, or FSB, secretly filmed Mr. Trump with prostitutes in this Moscow hotel room 3 years ago.
Allegations the special counsel continues to investigate, George.
And so far, it is us as American citizens, it is us in the press who are connecting the dots on this story, who are figuring this out.
Did the Trump campaign, did the candidate at the heart of it conspire with Russia to subvert American democracy? And does Russia have some kind of leverage over Donald Trump?
If this BuzzFeed News report is true, then we are likely on our way to possible impeachment proceedings.
If this story is true, we must begin impeachment proceedings.
This is suborning perjury. I think there's no question it's an impeachable offense.
And at that point, we are in high crimes and misdemeanor, and we are in impeachment territory.
Right. This president needs to be impeached.
Impeachment is the remedy. I mean, the president can't...
It's the only remedy. The spirit of what Trump did is clearly treasonous.
This is moving into perjury, false statements, and even into potentially treason.
There's outright treason. I mean, there is no question. I think he's feeling the noose around his neck.
The noose is tightening, and I think they're shocked that the noose is tightening. He feels the noose is tightening.
The noose is tightening.
The sound of hoofbeats of all those investigations catching up with Donald Trump must be loud in his ears.
He may be the first president in quite some time to face the real prospect of jail time.
People might go to jail
You're exactly right.
for the rest of their lives.
I think they're all going to jail. Well, I think they're all going to end up together in prison, and maybe that's a good thing.
God.
He has no idea that he's going down.
You're confident that at least some Trump associates will wind up in jail?
If I was betting, I would say yes.
Donald Trump has been a Russian intelligence asset since 1987.
We are at war with Russia. The nation and all of our freedoms hang by a thread, and the military apparatus of this country is about to be handed over to scum who are beholden to scum, Russian scum.
There you go. That's a nice little summary of a lot of the Russia stuff. Unfortunately, I don't think I saw enough Rachel Maddow in it. Rachel Maddow was the Russian propaganda princess about the Russia collusion for the last 2 years. I didn't see enough man out. But in all honesty, there were some people in there that were shoveling with both hands. No doubt. Just shoveling away with both hands. And I've actually decided I'm going to push the Jim Jordan clip to a separate video. I think that one deserves some coverage all on its own, in all honesty, because he just took a club and beat Robert Mueller with it, with the question. He made him look like such a fool. So we're going to cover that one on separate. But this just shows right here. People, I'm sure there were so many people just crying big old tears. This whole Russia thing didn't play out. But in all honesty, again, hey, they didn't find it, but you see what's still going on. Again, innocent till proven guilty was not given to this president. He did not get his legal due process here. And even though Mueller brought up the opinion of the Office of Legal Counsel, said that you can't indict the sitting president, he couldn't, because see, this whole obstruction argument, it's so insane. God, it's so insane. The man obstructed justice by trying to shut down an investigation into something. In other words, he didn't try to shut down the whole, in other words, he didn't commit the crime. He didn't commit the crime. There's no crime there. They're investigating him for colluding with the Russians. They're investigating him for colluding with the Russians. He didn't collude with the Russians. Didn't happen. Just did not happen. So how did he obstruct justice? He knew he didn't do it. Louis Gohmert summed it up very well in his questioning of Bob Mueller today. The man knew he was innocent. And the Democrats were looking for every avenue possible to just keep this whole mess dragging on out. Dragging out. And here is the bad part. We're going through this whole freaking mess because they are accusing the Russians of meddling in our elections. And most Americans would look at that scenario and say, oh, that's horrible. Yeah, we can't have a foreign country interfering in our elections. Well, you're right. So why do we interfere in other people's elections? Why do we try to spread our influence to the elections of other countries? We've been doing it for a long time. Democrats took it as far as to say that a country trying to influence our elections, that's an act of war. That's like an act of war. That's like declaring war on the United States. Michael Avenatti, oh, Mr. Creepy Porn Lawyer. Mr. Creepy Porn Lawyer. He himself said that it would have been no different than if Russia had placed thousands of troops on our border. Oh, bull. 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 I forget the exact number. But if you want to, go watch RT America. Listen to Jesse Ventura talk about this. If interfering in elections was like declaring an act of war, we would have declared war on so many different countries. Recently. And we're not even talking about all the governments way back when that we threw out that were democratically elected and installed dictators thanks to our lovely CIA. That intelligence community that'll get back at you 6 ways from Sunday. Oh, yeah. Lovely group those folks are, without a doubt. Oh, look, just lovely. So, yeah. we would have declared war on a lot of countries by interfering in elections. according to the Democrat standard of what interfering in the elections did. Me personally, I look at it like this. If I'm another country, I know one candidate. Of course, the counter argument before I even get it out is going to be, no, they want who will do their bidding. But I would counter that to say maybe, and maybe they just want the one who they think they can actually work out a deal with that's not going to be so corrupt they can't ever get anywhere. Maybe they're tired of constantly being at each other's throats. Just maybe. Just maybe. It's a possibility. Okay? Maybe they want a president that's actually seriously willing to give diplomacy a try. Okay? Maybe they're willing to do that. Or maybe they want someone they think would be willing to do that. Clearly they didn't get it out of the Obama administration. Okay? They didn't get it out of the Obama administration. So, they said, okay, Hillary is Obama round 2. Let's try this option. Just a thought. And if that was declaring war, my Lord, someone finally declared war on us by interfering in our elections while we're doing it to a nice chunk percentage of the other countries in the world. We got to influence their elections because we want people that'll do our bidding throughout the world. Hypocrisy at its finest. There have been a few politicians that were brave enough to point that little fact out. Most don't. Okay? But we'll be doing more videos on this. And stay tuned because the Jim Jordan round is coming up next. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Independent Report. If you liked the video, please hit that like button and please subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe, ring that bell so you'll receive notifications when we drop new videos. I'm trying to grow this channel and inform more people of what's going on in the world around them. Thank you for your support, and we hope you tune in next time.